Hello again, and welcome to Agile Project Management 101, running meetings for a Scrum sprint. In this section, we're going to be talking about managing meetings in general, some rules of thumb, heuristics for handling meetings. Now, this can be utilized, of course, outside of Agile Project Management, but we're going to be using these general practices for managing meetings and talking about how to apply them within the framework of a Scrum sprint. And the first one is to have a goal for the meeting. I'm personally a fan of agendas, and oftentimes this can help elicit the goal of the meeting, or at least the tasks that should be completed for this meeting. What's the purpose of the meeting? And having that goal and communicating the goal multiple times really makes it more efficient. You want to communicate anything that should be brought by the individuals attending the meeting ahead of time. So, for example, in sprint planning, if developers need to have estimates of their time prior to the meeting, make sure to communicate that multiple times before the meeting. Another item that really helps with making the meeting more efficient, instead of just spinning in circles and talking about the weather for an hour, is time management. Oftentimes, depending on how busy a day is, individuals will be showing up 2 or 3 minutes late to the meeting because another meeting has run long. You may want to end a few minutes early because oftentimes, like I said, people have back-to-back meetings. So make sure that you're planning to have that buffer at the beginning and the end of the meeting when you are considering how much time is going to be included in the meeting. Now, when it comes to items like a daily stand-up, again, these meetings should be really limited to 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on the size of the team. With those meetings regarding time management, you want to make sure that you are keeping a close eye on how long discussions are taking. And with that, don't be afraid to use the parking lot that we discussed. The parking lot, or post-meeting topics, is a great way to take a topic and park it, to use a metaphor here, and can be discussed after the meeting, can be discussed in a separately scheduled meeting, and is a really effective tool to keep time on your side when it comes to managing meetings. Another general rule of thumb is to take notes. Now, this isn't always necessary. Oftentimes, the physical manifestation of the minutes can be the Kanban board or the sprint board, where you are moving these stories around based on feedback from the developers. Maybe you're moving something from in progress to in QA based on that feedback, and that offers that kind of detailed tracking of what's going on in the meetings. In other sessions like the sprint retrospective and the sprint review, and even the sprint planning, you may want to actually have a pen and paper if you prefer that, or some type of a document where you can type out the notes. But try to keep a consistent structure throughout your meetings and across individuals as you may be working on multiple teams. Items to track would be action items or next steps, milestones if there are any key milestones that you should be tracking, and then stakeholder feedback or decisions from the group. So if you have a product manager that you are working very closely with, any decisions should be written down and made aware of to the team. And that kind of leads into what should be discussed at the end. You want to talk about next steps or action items, takeaways, whatever you'd like to refer to them as, and talk about who is responsible, what the time frame is. Now, often with time frame and Scrum, the time frame is going to be the sprint, most likely. But not always. Sometimes you may say, hey, the next day, I need to discuss with you about a release as we are planning for our release with these 6 sprints that we're including. And then don't forget to include the context of the next steps. So who is responsible, what the time frame is, and the context or what is included in the next steps. Lastly, it's common courtesy to follow up with an email or communication of your choice with these next steps. And if you happen to have a nice clean summary of the meeting, that can be helpful to send out as well. Again, these are all heuristics, best practices. That doesn't mean that you have to have them for every meeting. That doesn't mean you have to have them at all. These are just tools for you to be able to use as the Scrum Master and the Project Manager to make managing these meetings, from the sprint planning meeting to your daily stand-ups to the sprint review, all the way to the sprint retrospective, and make managing those items easier. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed this course.